Hello everyone, welcome to Melissa's Musings. I am Melissa Steele, as you guys know, real estate agent and host of Melissa's Musings. And I'm coming to you with another episode on shame. So I'm reading two books by Brené Brown right now, and they are fascinating, so interesting, and she has spent a majority of her life focusing on studying shame and the behaviors of shamefulness and being ashamed and how it affects your body and your lifestyle and all of that fun stuff. So for those of you who are familiar with her work, you know where this musing is coming from. And as you guys roll on in here, I'm gonna cover kind of the things that we've talked about so far, and I've got notes because this is super interesting stuff. And I am very committed personally to getting through my shame and for recognizing it when it comes up for me and all of the things so that I can shift from it. So I'm really committed to you guys having the same experience and being able to learn and hopefully shift from your shame when you're experiencing it as well. So to give you guys just a brief summary, guilt and shame are very different even though they're often interchanged. So guilt is an emotion that comes from a self-evaluation. So guilt comes from the thought of I have done something bad or I've made a mistake, like, ooh, I shouldn't have stolen that. That was so bad of me. Where shame, it's an intensely powerful feeling and it's a painful feeling. It's also comes from self-evaluation, but it embodies the feeling and focuses on the self. So instead of being like, ooh, I shouldn't have stolen that, it's like, wow, I am such a piece of shit for stealing that. How did I do that? So you really embody the shamefulness. And in doing so, your body actually takes on a reaction when it experiences feelings of shame. So the body will go through many different symptoms. For each individual person, they are different. For me, I was kind of explaining, and you can go to yesterday's musing for more details on my experiences and what some other people experience in terms of shame symptoms. That's what I'm calling them. But it's something that you can actually physically feel inside your body. Chemically, your body produces a fight or flight response when you feel ashamed. Oftentimes, you have reactions that you can feel, that you can taste, that you can even hear, like it might sound like blood rushing through your ears, or you might feel hot. So there are a lot of symptoms that come along with the feelings and the experience of shame. Now, as I was reading, there was actually a poem that Brené Brown read. So now we're transitioning to new musing information. So thank you guys for holding on through the summary. Those of you who I know have been watching the videos, like Alex and Paul, thank you guys so much for being here. So this is a poem that she references and reads in her book. And I'm listening to it on tape, so it was read to me. And as I was driving yesterday listening to this, it brought up some of the feelings of my shame. The poem is very raw, it's very vulnerable, and it's an example of what shame is. It's a very beautifully written poem, but it does a really good job of what's the word I'm looking for? Of really like normalizing and humanizing the feeling of shame. And as I was listening to the book on tape, the feelings that I've experienced at times, because this was relative to me, like certain aspects of this poem really resonated with me as personal experience, and it brought up the feelings of shame. Shame is actually something that you can feel as other people are sharing it with you in their vulnerability. It's something that can be felt as you experience somebody else doing something that you feel is shameful. So being ashamed is an action that not only happens with you, it can happen with those around you as well. So as you listen to this poem, I encourage you to really be open to what it's saying and hear the words that I'm going to read to you guys and see if any feelings are brought up. And I'm going to be really, open with you guys and ask if you wouldn't mind, would love to know if you have any feelings come up for you guys. So if anything comes up for you, please share it in the comments. If you start to feel hot or feel flushed from an experience that maybe had been similar to something that I'm going to read, basically anything that comes up, I'm very curious. Like, you will absolutely be helping me learn. So please share. I would love it. So before I dive into reading this, so Paul said drinking too much, regret or shame? We're talking about shame, Paul, not regret. But regret is a totally different ballgame. I feel like regret is more looking back, where shame is happening in the moment. It's like a self-evaluation. Okay, shame. And this is by, and I'm so sorry because I don't think I'm going to pronounce this right, but the poem is called Shame by Vern Ritsala. This is the shame of the woman whose hand hides her smile because her teeth are bad, not the grand self-hatred that leads some to razors or pills or swan dives off beautiful bridges, however tragic that is. This is the shame of being yourself, of being ashamed of where you live and what your father's paycheck lets you eat and wear. This is the shame of the fat and the old, the unbearable blush of acne, the shame of having no lunch money and pretending that you're not hungry. This is the shame of concealed sickness, diseases too expensive to afford that only offer their cold one-way tickets out. This is the shame of being ashamed, the self-disgust of the cheap wine drink, that lassitude that makes junk accumulate, the shame that tells you that there is another way to live, but you are too dumb to find it. This is the real shame, the damned shame, the crying shame, the shame that's criminal, the shame of knowing words like glory are not in your vocabulary, though they litter the Bibles that you're still paying for. This is the shame of not knowing how to read and pretending that you do. This is the shame that makes you afraid to leave your house, the shame of food stamps at the supermarket when the clerk shows impatience when you fumble with the change. This is the shame of dirty underwear, the shame of pretending your father works in an office as God intended that all men do. This is the shame of asking friends to let you off in front of the one nice house in the neighborhood and waiting in the shadows until they drive away before walking to the gloom of your own home. This is the shame at the end of the mania for owning things, the shame of no heat in the winter, the shame of eating cat food, the unholy shame of dreaming of a new house and car, and the shame of knowing how cheap some dreams are. Intense, right? Like, it brings up emotion for me. As I'm reading through it, I literally think back at times of my life where I have experienced that shamefulness, that pain, that raw feeling, the wanting to hide myself, the not wanting to be vulnerable. And like, it's powerful. It came up for me. I would be really curious, like, did anything come up for you guys? As I was reading that, like, did anything trigger? Did you have any emotion come up? Did any emotion flow? Because as I was listening to it yesterday in the car, I cried. Tears came down my face. Not because any of these in particular were things that I've specifically dealt with, but I have experienced shame in so many ways, and there have been so many people who've shared their shame with me. These things that they've experienced in their lives, where the only thing I could do was give them comfort and a hug and like appreciate the fact that they were able to be so vulnerable with me. So, if you've been having trouble after yesterday's musing of identifying your shame symptoms, I hope the poem can help to clarify and maybe brought up certain things that helped you to remember when you've felt shame. Oh, Paul, I'm so sorry to hear that. For you, drinking too much makes me feel shame the next day. I, too, feel that. I often am very regretful the day after drinking, which is why I do so not too often. I like go wild maybe like every other month with a few drinks. And the reason being is I had a really robust drinking time in college and a time after college. And I started to realize, similar to you, Paul, on the mornings that I was waking up and really not feeling myself and feeling really regretful about my prior day's choices, it are times when I started to switch those habits. So Paul, I would love to talk to you about that if you want any support. Marco me. So basically, if you are experiencing these feelings of shame and are now able to identify when they're coming up for you, one of the things that we're going to be talking about later this week is the things that we do in avoidance of shame, along with some tools to work through shame when it comes up. So let's see what you guys said. So Alex, glossy eyes and goosebumps. Thank you for sharing, Alex. Yeah, like I get chills, right? Like it's kind of funky. And Paul, I completely sympathize. I want to be social and drink socially, but sometimes it gets out of hand. Let's connect on that. Like, absolutely. Maybe you get to decide for yourself what that looks like. And that's something that so many of us deal with. Like, I know that I have dealt with that for sure. And the social pressure of drinking too. There have been so many times where I've been cleansing. There was a period of time where I was like my sickest and I didn't have alcohol for like 14 or 15 months. But it was so difficult for me to, in certain situations, like I just felt so socially pressured into drinking. And I didn't, of course, because I was like, dealing with major health things and I wasn't going to compromise that. But it was just really isolating. So I would love to connect with you on that, Paul, and I should do a musing on it, because it's something that like definitely affects so many people. And Alex, thank you. I'm so glad that you enjoyed the poem. For those of you who are just joining in now, would love for you to go back and listen on the replay. It's a really powerful poem. It can be triggering. It can bring things up for you. But if you're looking to identify what shame looks like for you, what the symptoms feel like within your body, and have that knowledge so that you have the power to shift when it's happening, I empower you to go back, rewatch the video, see what comes up for you, and please share it in the column. I've been like in spreadsheets today for accounting and for taxes, so clearly that's where I'm at, not the column. Oh man. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you for tuning in. I love you, and if you are experiencing feelings of shame or are stuck or are just struggling, please reach out. I'm gonna shoot you a Marco, Paul. I'll talk to you guys soon.